Hey, David,
Yes, sir.
where did you get your carpet sample from? That tile.
So I actually got mine here in Modesto from a carpet supply house. I think it's called House of Carpets or something like that.
Uh,
And I went over to them. Home Depot you have to pay for some of their small samples, whereas a carpet store um, will usually give them to you because they get
oh,
so much of this from, yep,
this is Home
yep.
Depot. Because I was looking for the tiles that you had. It's like this is nothing like what you got. So it doesn't have the doesn't have the backing on it like yours does.
Now you have, let me see the back side of yours.
There's this one, and then there's another one, and this one's not too good, dude. Can
And
you see
that's the
that?
back side.
That's the back. See, it's got
That
the
is, yep, that is exactly something that we could talk about for a minute in class. So I'm going to have you show that in class later.
yeah,
The one that's on your right hand, I believe. That's
correct.
got
That's what
the,
that seems like.
yep.
It traps a lot in there. Where that
Yeah,
breaks off.
that's what allows a lot of sand through. So it's funny when you remove that carpet from a floor because
Right,
it's directly glued down to the floor. But when you remove it from the floor, you'll find that there's still sand through there.
right.
And in our homes, that's the same thing.
Yeah, I went to Lowe's
Okay.
for carpet floor and towel, but I thought they opened up at 8:30 or something like that. So they opened up at 9. I said, all right, I'm not going to waste no time. Let me go to Lowe's, and they have free samples of carpet, different commercial carpet, different type of carpet, and then I went to the floor and received some free samples. And
Nice.
I was going to get the turf grass they had. So
Yes.
they have a lot of free samples.
Very cool.
Hey Nelson, was yours like this here as well? These little squares?
Uh,
Okay.
A little bit
With
bigger. Not much.
and then what the
the backing. All right.
yes,
Yep.
and then what
That is a
Oh,
laminated wood floor. And that is a LVT flooring. That is also an LVT flooring. He tested me. That looks like laminate. You'll have to turn it on its side for me to see, but it looks like turn it so I can see the side view, like where I can see the thickness of it.
the
oh,
edge.
Yeah, yeah, that's a type of a laminate that's got almost a particle board. Because what'll happen is if moisture gets inside that thing, will swell.
so what about this one?
That looks like an engineered hardwood.
So
It
that's
might
the
be. Is it wood or does it feel fake? Because it almost looks like it could be just a laminate without me seeing it.
it's the laminate, and they just like the same thing with this one, vinyl.
Yep, luxury vinyl tiles.
Yeah,
Yep.
and this one
What is that?
is a part of the floor. No, part of the table, candles.
Goofball.
That is too
All
far
right.
away.
Yeah, I was trying to see if they had towels, different towels, but they didn't have no towels in that they had no samples
Right.
because the manufacturer, I think they're gonna start picking back up because of due to the pandemic, everything was on hold.
Right. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. As you saw, some of you guys have got some of your samples. So I know Nelson and Mark both have been able to pick up some samples. Anybody else able to pick up any samples of carpeted flooring materials? Nobody else? Okay. One of the values to you guys as you go about doing that, it's obviously for your education, for you to be able to kind of understand what we're talking about. And in all honesty, it's also a great way for you guys to do some testing, do some experimenting with, to be able to understand that floor material. Mark and Nelson both, if you guys will hold up your sample that has the that carpeted backing, or not the carpeted, but that weave, that's a perfect one. And Nelson, you have one like that too? Yep. If you guys notice the crisscross pattern that's there, what that is it's the backing to the carpet. Now, I was mentioning about the difference between a commercial carpet. This is a carpet that would be glued down directly to the floor, in comparison to what we would call carpet tiles, which also are glued down, but they have a rubber backing. You guys can put them down now. But what happens is, because of that weave there, all that is some fibrous material that they use. They create a weave, and it has a latex material that holds it together. And then the carpet itself is glued onto that, or it's attached through a process in the manufacturing that attaches it to that backing. One of the things that can happen is you'll hear a term in carpet cleaning called delamination, okay, or delaminate. What that is it's literally the carpet tufts, okay, that's the fibrous material on the top, separating from that backing. And interestingly enough, we are the ones who can create that problem in the cleaning world. Because if we use a solvent that breaks down the glue that holds that backing together, we could create that problem. I'll give you an example. Years ago, when I was new in the business, one of my accounts was a roller skating rink. And anybody knowing roller skating rinks, one of the big things that's a no-no at a roller skating rink is gum. They don't want people chewing gum, because chewing gum gets, when people spit it out or drop and it gets on the floor, it gets on the wheels of the roller skates, but it also gets rolled into the carpet and mashed into it. So what would happen is they would have their employees, this one particular account of mine, go around and use a citrus or orange solvent to remove gum, which is a great gum remover. But you keep in mind, the employees doing this were about 16 to 19 years of age. Not a lot of experience. They didn't know much about chemicals. Their boss said to do it, so they would soak that gum with it. And it was funny because they had just got some brand new carpet installed throughout this entire facility, all the snack bar areas and the gaming areas and everything else. So sure enough, within just a year and a half, they had spots where the carpet was coming loose from the concrete. And, they were at a loss. What's causing this? What we're able to identify was their employees using this gum remover. Fortunately, I wasn't the one who sold it to them, so I was very happy about that. But they were using this gum remover, and they had created delamination, separating the carpet tufts from that backing. The other thing about that backing, the reason carpets were made with that backing, prior to us doing glue down of carpet, in your home, the carpet that you have has that same backing. And carpet, when it's manufactured in a wet process. And it's manufactured in these very large rolls. And that's how they dye the carpet. That's how they do everything. Well, once that carpet is installed in your house, it's installed with tack strips against the walls. And the carpet is tucked into the tack strip and it's stretched across the room. And it's because of that backing material that allows the carpet to stretch and be able to grab hold of the tack strip on the other side. It grabs hold of that weave backing, and that's what creates the tightness of the carpet. Now, in households where the carpet is installed on concrete floors, it generally speaking stays pretty well stretched for years because the tack strips stay pretty well into the ground. But on an older home with wood flooring underneath, over time, the wood is going to flex, and what will happen is the carpet will need to be re-stretched in a residential setting. So in residential carpets, that's the reason for that backing. Commercial carpets use the same technology, and they just glued it directly down. They didn't have to stretch it in. You had a question, Mark?
Yeah, does that backing, does that deteriorate to where it also creates the dirt and sand underneath?
It does. So it's interesting, two things happen. Is in a residential, sand can actually, over time, degrade and cut through that backing. And it's funny because you will see some really old carpets where both the padding, in a residential setting at least, the padding and the backing will degrade, and you will see them literally just turn to sand and dirt, and that's where it needs to be replaced. So the problem with carpet is, we talked about indoor air quality the other day, that from the health standpoint, if carpet is properly maintained and replaced as it wears out, carpet's a fantastic filter in a home. The biggest problem is that carpet isn't done that way. Most of the time, we don't re-stretch our carpets, and over time it starts to break down faster. We don't clean our carpets enough. We don't vacuum enough. So all those things create a problem because reality, it's all below the sight line. We don't see it, therefore we don't think about it. We don't realize how critically important it is to remove that. On a commercial carpet, that doesn't occur nearly as much because it's directly glued down to the concrete. There's nowhere for the sand to go below that. But it will, if the glue is not a good glue or something along those lines, or the glue is delaminated from the concrete in any way, then you can run into that issue of it breaking down very quickly and just falling apart. Nelson.
So what a residential carpet from the house, and they be saying you have 5-year warranty or 10 years. So would that be because of the wear and tear? Yes. And everything that come in place? So they replace that for free, or there's a
it's a prorated. Yeah. And it's a good question you ask because it applies to both commercial and residential carpeting. Carpets have warranties, okay? Manufacturers will stand behind it if it is properly installed and properly maintained. But it's also easy to void that warranty because if you think about it from a manufacturer standpoint, if you make a carpet and Mark and Nelson, you maintain it really well. You have a carpet program. You're vacuuming regularly and doing all those things. But I don't. I never vacuum my carpet. I don't do anything, right? my carpet's not going to last as long as yours is. So it has to work out for the manufacturer that they're not on the hook for my carpet because I don't maintain it and you guys do. You know, it becomes unfair. So they created standards, and they'll build this into their warranty that says you have to properly maintain it. One of the things, and it's a good question you asked, one of the things about carpet, and this is a good example, and I'll try and show you guys this. If you guys look, these fibers are looped, okay? And so what will happen is that backing that you guys have, the machine, if you think about a loom, right? An old loom that used to people use, the machine will tuft the carpet into that backing, and it literally loops like this, okay? When we have carpet that has a more of that cut fiber on the top, okay, where it doesn't have the loop, you'll see individual tufts. What happens is literally the top of that is usually cut off or shaved off. Yes, that's an example of it. So as a result, the carpet gets almost a haircut, right? And that loose material is removed off the top. But what happens to those fibers, a strand of carpet is a bunch of little tiny strands that are all entwined together. That carpet, when you cut it like that, it still has a twist to it, and they'll set that twist chemically. Part of the solution, the way they make it, it gets set so it stays twisted. However, one of the methods of carpet cleaning that I'll show you guys on Friday involves a system called bonnet cleaning. Most carpet manufacturers will now void the warranty of the carpet if you clean it with a bonnet cleaning machine, because it starts to remove the twist and it'll cause the yarn to break down much faster. So from a manufacturing standpoint, bonnet cleaning is not a recommended system for carpet cleaning. So I will explain to you those methods, even though this, and again, we're not going to go out and hands-on do it because this class doesn't get into that, but I just like you guys to be aware of it. So on Friday, I'll go through those methods and show you some of the different carpet cleaning restoration methods, such as bonnet cleaning and so forth. So, okay. So thank you guys for bringing in some samples. That helps the class. And again, I encourage you guys, all of you, in the days to come, go out and get yourself some carpet samples, because then you can learn how to play around with how to remove stains. And that's going to be what that's what will help you guys to increase in your knowledge of how to clean. So, all right, so your assignment today was to just to review the information on the chemicals. And as you saw, there's not a lot of information, but we're going to focus in on it. And the reason there's not a lot of information, carpet maintenance does not involve on a daily basis the use of chemicals. The most common thing we need to do for maintaining our carpet is, one, keep the entrance mats clean, and two, vacuum our carpet. However, the third thing we do on a regular basis, and if we do this, as part of our regular program, it will extend the life, is that we deal with carpet spots or stains. So that is what most of the chemicals on the daily maintenance, the basic maintenance of carpets, involve, is for carpet spot or stain removal. And we're going to go through a carpet spotting kit. I do want to address just briefly what the difference is, even though we'll cover it a little bit more in the procedures. But this term spotting refers to the removal of localized soil from carpets. The difference between a spill and a spot and a stain is important. A spill is a quantity of fluids, okay, that has been spilled and should be blotted or vacuumed up, okay? A spot is a recent residue spillage that has been allowed to dry, and a stain is a spill or spot that has been set due to time or possibly improper techniques. So when we refer to it, we're going to specifically focus in on spot cleaning of carpets. Okay, stain removal is when that stain becomes set, and stain removal is a much more difficult thing. However, I will tell you, those terms, spot and stain removal, are a lot of times used interchangeably. So, Ken, you had a question.
Archana, she wanted you to record this.
Okay, thank you.
Recording in progress.
And by the way, the reason why it doesn't get posted into the classroom so quickly, it takes almost 24 hours for Zoom to give me the recording back. I didn't get it back Monday night until early Tuesday morning. I got an email saying it was ready for you guys. So I will post it. I was in the process of doing that before class today. So Monday's class recording will be in the Google Classroom here before we finish today. So let's go through. I want to go through the what's involved or what's included in a carpet spotting kit, why we use those tools or those products, and then that will help us as we start to look into doing spot removal. So first of all, just to kind of give you an idea of what a carpet spotting kit looks like, share my screen with you guys. Now this kit, you guys should be seeing that now. This is a typical carpet spotting kit. It has a nice carrying case, has an assortment of chemicals that would be used. We're going to talk about what those chemicals typically are. You'll notice that it also has some specialty tools. I'm going to address these tools for you guys here in just a minute. But these kind of kits are available through janitorial supply companies. And I'll give you an example of some supply companies that are real popular. This one comes from a company that is one of the leaders in carpet cleaning products, as well as stuff for polished concrete and specialty floor cleaning. Name of their company is called Jon-Don. It's Jondon. And they are located all over the U.S., so a pretty sizable company. But this is an example of one of their spotting kits. And in just a minute, we're going to watch a video about the use of the spotting kit. But first, I just want to kind of address the items that you see here. Now, the first is this brush that we see at the bottom, just underneath all these chemicals. Now, most of us would think of that as a nice brush for agitating the carpet. You're going to see how that's used. Here's another picture of it from another carpet cleaning manufacturer or company that makes carpet chemicals. And you'll notice that it is very short bristles with a wood backing. These are, in comparison, this is another example of a carpet spotting brush. Again, very short bristles, usually very stiff kind of fiber. That one's brass, so you wouldn't want to use those on carpet. This is a cheapy one. I don't recommend this. This is better for use on grouted areas. It doesn't accomplish what we want to accomplish with it. All right, so that's some examples, those couple that I first showed you. go back to that. This is a perfect example of it. So that's called a carpet spotting brush. We'll learn how we use that here in a minute. Another tool out there is called a bone scraper. And now these scrapers are really interesting because they're made out of a variety of material. Nowadays they make them out of plastic, but once upon a time they were made out of different bone materials with the idea it's not a sharp point, but it does come to a point. These are fantastic because we can use them to remove gum out of carpet. We could also use it to open or separate the fibers. In some cases, we're going to need to do that with stuff, especially if we're removing grease or tar or oil. We sometimes need to do that. One of the things that we don't want to do when we deal with carpet spotting is we never want to scrub it. We're not trying to agitate it and do that. And the reason being, when you do that, you spread the stain. When we start talking about how we deal with stains, you'll learn we work from the outside in with doing that. But these are a fantastic tool just to help us for being able to get into the small fibers. Some people will use a putty knife. Now, I honestly do not like putty knives because I don't like the sharp edge that a putty knife has. So if you're using a putty knife, round the edge over on it. You can do that on concrete or something like that. The other option or reason I don't like a putty knife is putty knives are made with metal, and certain chemicals will have a reaction to the metal and you'll deal with rust. So I don't like putty knives for it. You can use them, but I prefer something like this. We call it a bone scraper, but like I mentioned, it's typically made nowadays out of plastic. Microfiber rags are good. However, a cotton terry cloth towel. Okay. Now, microfiber, as you guys have seen, fantastic. We've talked a lot about the use of microfiber, very absorbent. However, one of the nice things with a cotton towel is the open weave of it, because you can use it for some specialty things that you'll learn about more on the use of steam in removing some stains. You never want to do that with a microfiber because it will melt the plastics, the synthetic fibers. So I prefer a terry cloth towel to a microfiber. Let's see. Another thing that you're going to want to use is something called a pH test paper or litmus paper. And if anybody has a pool or a hot tub, you may have used these before, but these little test strips, you see a lot of different variations of it, allow you to test for the pH of the spot. So here's what's really interesting. As we learned about pH before, we found that pretty much any liquids we can get a pH from. You can also get a pH from dry soil by just getting it a little damp and then testing the pH. So it does work even on soil. So who could help me to remember, when it comes to pH, if I have a stain that is acidic, what kind of chemical would I want to use to remove that stain? Who said that? Eduardo?
Yeah. So
what did you say? Alkaline, yes. Very
Alkaline.
good. Yep. Excellent. And vice versa, correct? If we're
Yeah.
dealing with an alkaline stain, we would use an acid.
Only sleep at
An
night.
alkaline stain, a very common alkaline stain, is rust. Okay? Rust stains are very common on carpet because a lot of times after a carpet's cleaned, people will put furniture back on it too soon, and it will leave, especially if it has a metal feet to it, it'll leave a rust spot. So good test there. So that's called a litmus paper for checking pH. Litmus papers are fantastic way for you guys to test the pH of the stain. So let's get into the chemicals that are involved in this. It mentions, by the way, a double-sided sponge that can be used to apply neutral pH cleaner. I don't like the use of sponges, but you can use it. Alex, you had a question.
Yes. Speaking of rust, is rust easier to clean on a carpet than in furniture?
Explain on furniture. What do you mean? Like a couch or something?
Let's just take example a chair with like a metal stands on the bottom of the legs. Like there's rust on them. Would that be easier to clean? Would it
Yes.
be easier to clean on carpet than furniture?
It's a lot easier to clean it off the metal, but typically what causes the rust isn't the fact that metal piece of furniture has rust on it. It may not have any rust, but when you put water with it and leave it sitting there, it will cause rust, and that will cause it on the floor. So it's not so much that there's rust existing, but as soon as you put it onto a wet floor and leave it sitting there, that's what could cause it. Does that make sense, Alex?
Thank you.
Now,
Yes.
a good question with that, okay, is there is a solution to it. One, they make little pieces of plastic, just little slips of plastic that you can put underneath the feet of your furniture when you clean your carpet. So you may find a professional carpet cleaner after they've done cleaning your house or something along those lines. They'll put these little pieces of plastic, or it used to be that they would put foam blocks, styrofoam, underneath the furniture just so it would not leave it sitting there on the wet carpet. So any of those are acceptable. Because wood left on carpet will leave a wood stain on there, or metal left on carpet will cause a rust stain. So either of those, not a good idea. All professional carpet cleaners, when they go through their training for extraction cleaning, and they go through a pretty good deep training on that, that is one of the things that they're trained on, not to leave furniture sitting directly onto wet carpet. Okay, so going back to our kits, we have our scraper, our carpet spotting brush, our terry cloth towels, a case to hold it all in, and then we'll have our pH test strips. After that, we start looking at the actual chemicals. So a few core chemicals. We talk first of all back about the idea of dealing with acid and alkaline stains. So I don't know what the stain is until I go in and test it. But wouldn't you agree that if I know that it's an acid stain, I'm going to need an alkaline cleaner? So I should probably have something that is higher alkaline, maybe a degreaser. I might also have an acidic cleaner, right? Something like maybe vinegar, right? So that gives me a couple of chemicals I've got. We might also have a neutral pH cleaner, an all-purpose cleaner for some of the more simpler stains, right? Simple things like food stains or things along those lines. So those are three of our chemicals that we could use. And then we have something called a volatile solvent. And volatile solvents are those citrus solvents that I mentioned. Remember, volatile organic compounds, VOCs. Okay, so they make a variety of these solvents that can be used to remove grease, tar, oil, gum, those things. So we want to use that as one of our fourth products. Generally speaking, with those 4 chemicals, you'll get out over 90% of the stains. You may need a couple specialty products, but those, generally speaking, will work. So I want to show you guys a really cool video. This is from John Don. This is their trainer. He does a great job of talking about carpet spotting and how to do this. And let me address this one other point. You know, you guys are going through training from the International Sanitary Supply Association. That relatively applies to janitorial as a broad category. In a specific category, there are other smaller training organizations, and one that has been around for a long time is the Iicrc, and that is the International Institute of Carpet and Restoration Cleaning. Okay, that institute does every bit of training from basic carpet cleaning all the way to mold remediation, water damage, and inspector level training. Very fantastic training if you are choosing a field specific to the carpet industry. Okay, if you're doing that, they teach how to install carpet, how to repair it, how to do seams, all the different things associated with carpet. That's their instruction. So the gentleman who is doing this training is a trainer from Iicrc that works for John Don. So with that being said, let me share with you this video.
If you're a commercial cleaner,
Let's see if I can make this any bigger, guys.
probably have experienced this yourself. You just clean about 9,000 feet of
Hang on, guys. I meant to do this before we started.
hallways, and you're thinking, boy, they
Let's do this. I'm going to go into YouTube because it'll allow me to blow it up. His video is also on there. Yep, here's the video.
If you're a commercial cleaner, you probably have experienced this yourself. You just clean about 9,000 feet of hallways, and you're thinking, boy, they look great. And then the next morning, some early bird comes in there at 6 a.m., and on the way down the hallway drops a cup of coffee. Now, needless to say, they don't do anything, they just walk on. The boss walks in the next morning, looks down the hallway that was just cleaned last night, and what does he see? A spot. A spot ruins a perfect job. And so what we're going to talk about here is how to get rid of those spots and what type of spots we're talking about. As you look at spotting in general, there's really only a couple different types. There's your water-based spots. Those are your Cokes, foods, coffee type spills. And those are taken out probably about 95% of them just with your pre-spray and extraction. And then you have the oily type spots. Those are the things like gum, tar, grease, oil, makeup. Those things don't come out with water. They're not water soluble. And then you have, of course, the good old everyday gum that's stuck every place. So we've actually got a couple of spots here that we're going to work on. Now, some of these spots, like the water-based ones, you could use a common everyday alkaline spotter, your general spotter that'll take care of it, and you may be able to just use that and blot it with a towel and take care of it. The other spot, so we got here, we got one that's a gum spot, and the other one is actually some lipstick that got ground into the carpet. Both of those spots are going to be solvent soluble, and we're going to need to use what's called a paint oil grease remover. Some people just refer to it as a POG. Now we can have two different types of POGs. One will be a citrus type product, a gel, which means a gel stays up on top of the carpet and it's a much safer product. The other one is a more aggressive product. That product can go through the carpet and start to delaminate the backing, or it could start to attack the adhesive that holds a direct glue carpet to the floor. So we can look at these things. We'll talk about a spotting kit number one. A spotting kit, such as this one right here, is going to have a complete set of spotters for all different types of products. In other words, you have everything from your general spotter here to your POGs or paint oil grease removers, and then you're going to have products that are specialty spotters that may be using something like stains from Kool-Aids, from red dyes, or maybe wine or something else. Two different types of spotters here that would be doing that. So a lot of different things, but what we're going to work on today is just going to be these basic ones here. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to work with the gum first. And in this case, what I'm going to use is going to be a gel product. This is Matrix Citrus Gel or Orange Power Gel. And this one, as I said, is going to be a gel product. And what we're going to do is we're going to put this on a spot. We always start from the outside in. And I'm working on this, trying to make sure I got it covered completely. Okay, and this gel is actually going to work down into the gum itself and take care of that product, loosen it up so we can pry it up with a bone spatula or a bone scraper, and then we'll go after it and try and extract out any residue that may be left. Now, the other one we have here is going to be lipstick. Now, lipstick, one of our rules of spotting is that we remove as much of the excess as possible before we do anything else. So in this case, all I'm going to do is take a dry towel and just blot it. In this case, I get a little transfer to the towel, but not much. So it's going to take my product to go through and use that. Now, on this one, I'm going to use, for the example, this one, I'm going to use a product called Matrix Breakdown. Now, Matrix Breakdown is a very aggressive POG. You don't ever want to use this product by itself, squirting it on the carpet, because you could cause potential damage. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply it to my towel, all right, on the outside of the towel. Make sure you close that lid again before you set it down because you don't want to knock it over. And then I'm going to work with this and just blot it on the towel itself, okay? You'll notice that I'm not rubbing aggressively. All I'm trying to do at this point is just soften up that lipstick, okay? And you'll notice now that I'm getting more of that as it's coming out. So now I just kind of work on it a little bit, okay? Soften it up there. Now, before I get too aggressive, though, what I may do is just go back. Instead of using that, I can also go back to the citrus gel because the Orange Power Gel now is going to work just like it does on the gum. Put some in the center of it. Actually take that, and I can take my bone spatula, and I'm going to agitate this slightly on here. And I'm always working from the outside in on this spot. And our gum, same thing, it's getting a little bit gooier. The nice thing about a bone spatula is that it allows you to pry under this without damaging the carpet fibers. And this particular carpet being a Saxony, meaning a cut pile carpet, I could easily pull out some of those yarns if I wasn't cautious. So in this case, I'm getting most of that gum out. I'll have a little bit left in there. Place that over here on this. And once again, the bone spatula is great because you can agitate the carpet slightly without causing damage to it. I still have a little bit on there, so what I'm going to do is add a little bit more gel product to that spot. and let it sit for a little bit while I'm working on these other spots. Now, we're going to give that a little bit of dwell time. I'm going over here. This is going to be my water-based spot. This is going to be a Coke spill. Pretty common, or coffee spills that you may have in many environments. On this one, what I'm going to just do is use a neutral spotter spot out. Okay, got a handy trigger sprayer, and just like the other one, I am going to work from the outside in, spraying this spot. Now, I can do one or two things here. I can use this, make sure I don't get my gum back on there. I can put this towel over here, I can blot, or I can also use what we call a tamping brush. And a tamping brush is used to drive the spotter into the spot, break it up, okay, and put it into the towel. Now, at the same time, it keeps my brush nice and clean. What I don't want to do is take a brush like this and aggressively rub on it, because what that's going to do is fray the tips of the yarns. So remember, this is not a scrub brush, this is a tamping brush, and that's what it's used for, okay? Now, at this point, you can see the majority of that's come up. Now, on this one, my hardest one still is going to be the lipstick, and I've got a little bit of gum left here. I'm going to extract. Okay, it looks like I'm doing a pretty good job here. My Coke spill came out real easy. Looks like the lipstick, which was the one I was really concerned about. I've got a tiny little bit of gum, because gum can be such a pain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go a little bit more aggressive here this time. I'm going to take, once again, the liquid POG, but as you'll notice, I'm going to put it on the towel. None of this stuff to the carpet. Although it's quicker, it can be very risky. Okay, and I'm lightly agitating, not a real hard rubbing, lightly agitating. Get those last little few tips. On a cut pile carpet, it's always harder to get that off than it is on a loop. And one more time, I'm going to extract.
All right. So the reason I wanted you guys to see that, even though we are not covering the process today so much, is that to understand some of the products he used. And I want to go back over those products. So first of all, the brush. Did you remember what he called that? Who remembers what he's referring to that as?
Tamping brush.
Tamping, yep. Alex, you got that as well, a tamping brush?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, so they're not meant, that brush is not meant for scrubbing or agitating the carpet. So part of that kit, having a tamping brush, it drives that stain into the carpet, because what we're or into the towel, we're looking for transference. We want the stain to transfer to the towel. So that's one of the first things we notice. You'll notice that on the soda stain, he used an all-purpose or neutral cleaner for doing the stain. If you guys turn to, in your book, page 87, from page 87 through page 90 is a nice guide on carpet spotting. And if you notice under cola, it shows as after you blot up the excess, and you always want to do that with whatever stain you're dealing with, remove the excess material. Then he used a detergent solution. In this case, it was a neutral pH detergent. Works exceptionally well. And you may have to do it a couple times. Now, one of the things that he did as part of his process is that he was rinsing it using the extractor. And you can use a large extractor like he's doing, or you can use a small spotting machine that is just like a couple gallons, has a little hand wand. Those are very popular and very good for carpet spotting. So great tool to use. But you'll notice that for the gum, he used a solvent, but he used it in a gel form. You saw how he squirted that on. What was the reason? He explained the reason why he was using a gel.
With the gel, it's set up on the fabric. Yep. But if he had used the liquid, it sink down, and he don't want to destroy the is that the matting underneath the rug?
The backing.
Yeah.
Yep. Remember what I told you guys about delamination? If you use a liquid and you saturate it and it penetrates down, because it's such a strong solvent, it will literally destroy that backing and cause the glue to separate and the tufts will come out. Now you have a worse problem that you can't fix, because now you have a section of carpet that's got a bald spot. You don't want that. So he used a gel. It stays to the top. Okay. Thank you, Christina. Now, he also used, when it came to lipstick, if you flip the page on lipstick, you'll notice that he used a solvent. Okay, he referred to it as a POG. What did POG stand for?
The gel?
Nope, he used a solvent first before he used the gel. He applied it to his towel.
So what POG stands for?
Yep. He
Paint,
told
oil,
us.
grease?
Very good. Paint, oil, grease remover. Or POG. Yep. You will find that at most carpet cleaning supply houses or janitorial supply companies that sell carpet cleaning products. Like John Don does a lot of that. You look for it and it'll say POG. POG is a volatile solvent. Okay, so works exceptionally well for getting things like lipstick out. You'll see other stains as you go through here that you could use that for, right? But then the last part, after he got the initial part off by putting it onto his towel and kind of blotting that, trying to get some transference. Once he got the bulk, then he went to the gel to get what was on the tips off, because it has a less aggressive solvent. But that worked incredibly well. And then once he rinsed it, he removed that residue. It was all gone. So the carpet was very good. Okay. And then he didn't show it, but this is some other ones just to kind of address. One of the very common stains he mentioned about coffee spills. Coffee spills, so many people have really worried about coffee spills, but here's what's really cool. Usually a neutral cleaner will do that, but here's what is my favorite neutral all-purpose cleaner, is ones that have hydrogen peroxide in it. Hydrogen peroxide does a great job of breaking down organic spills or stains, and coffee is organic, right? It is from the coffee bean. So that being said, does an awesome job of breaking down coffee stains and removing all the residue. Nelson, your question.
If you work from inside out, would that cause it to spread more, or?
Yes. Yep. When he does the first initial part of the stain, What you noticed is he circled it with the chemical and then worked from the outside in with the chemical. The only time he started to spread that is once he got the bulk of the stain gone, so it won't spread. Okay? So he never took his rag and did a scrubbing action with it. He kind of did a feathering in almost at the very end as a technique. Even with this bone scraper, he was working from the outside in, and the only time he really started to go back and forth and agitate it quite a bit was once he kind of got the bulk of it out. So the biggest thing we can take from this, a couple things that we want to pay attention to on the chemicals, is start with the least aggressive first. Usually working with a neutral all-purpose thing. Number two, try to identify the stain. The more you know about the stain, the easier it is going to be for you to be able to remove it, right? So try to identify that. And that's where using your pH test strip will work incredibly well. I think I have my test strips here. Give me a second, guys. I'm going to look at my desk real quick. So, no, these are not.
So Dave, using that video as an example, they knew what the stains were. Gum's kind of obvious.
Yes.
You approach something like that, what's the first thing you do? Because we don't know that that's lipstick. We don't know that's cola.
So first thing I do, I will always take and try to remove the excess first, just like you did with the rag, and see if you can get a transference. That's a first thing. That just helps to get any excess off. Next thing I will do is I will test it. I'm going to apply just a little bit of water, just enough to get it lightly damp. And then I'll take my pH test paper, which I will have some for us when we do this on Friday, and I'll test the pH. Interestingly enough, though, something like gum or lipstick will not have a pH. The reason being, one, they're not water-based products. They're made with solvents, so they likely will not have a pH. So once I know if it doesn't have a pH, then I know I'm going to have to use a solvent to remove it. But if it has a pH, then I'm going to use that to start with. Robert?
You said you're going to put water on it first. Water has a pH.
Correct. Water has a neutral pH. So remember, use distilled water.
Okay.
Okay, because it has a neutral pH 7. But whatever that stain is, the water will not neutralize it enough for it to change it. And we're not talking about flooding the water on. I'm talking about getting that fiber just lightly damp. Okay? I don't want to blot or squirt a lot of water on there. But I'll just get it lightly damp, then I'll test the pH. That will help me to be able to understand, am I dealing with an acid or an alkaline-based stain? Nelson?
All right, let's say that I don't have none of those equipment tools for the house. What's the best solution?
Two things. One, always start with the least aggressive first. Okay? So that's where a neutral pH all-purpose spotter usually is the best way to go. Again, I like ones that have hydrogen peroxide because it's going to tend to get more stains out. Now, from that standpoint, just be aware. Even in a home, we generally speaking know most of our stains because here's the reality. You know if it's gum because you could tell it. You know if it's wax, you could tell wax. But if it's a food stain, right, and that's going to be the majority of our stains in our home, it's either going to be a food stain or it's going to be pet urine. Okay? because we have pets. Animals will have their accidents. My mom has a little Chihuahua here. She has her little accidents because she gets all excited running to the door and she doesn't get there in time. So, which a whole other story there. But the reality is, you know, knowing that I have a hydrogen peroxide pet urine stain remover that we use, does a great job. It breaks down the urine as well. It's neutral, so it works incredibly well. I will spray it from the outside, work in, blot it, and then the best thing, again, this is where a little bit of investment, having a small extractor, a spotting machine that I can rinse it with, works incredibly well. If you don't have that to rinse it with, take yourself a spray bottle, again with distilled water, spray it on and blot it up after you've used the spot remover. That will remove any residue. Okay, a great way to do that. Okay, so that's the core of the chemicals in this. This is not overly complicated, but going through, you'll notice there is so many different stains to deal with, and I'll just address a few of these. You know, beer is organic. Okay, it's made out of hops and wheat and barley and organic materials. So a lot of times a neutral all-purpose or general purpose detergent will work very well on it. Blood's one that water a lot of times will break down. So just cold water and blotting it, and then whatever's left over, then you would use a hydrogen peroxide type of cleaner that works incredibly well at breaking down blood. Okay, remember, if we're dealing with blood, if it's small amounts of it, wear gloves and dispose of that towel properly. Butter's a little bit of a challenging one. We don't think of butter as being something that is real bad. And it says apply a dry cleaning solvent. This is the challenge. Do you use real butter in your house or do you use margarine? Margarine is a synthetic. Therefore, a solvent works really well. Butter is an organic. It's made out of dairy. Okay? And as a result, butter can be removed if you're dealing with small amounts. You can actually use a hydrogen peroxide solution and it'll work well. If that doesn't get it out, then you would go to the solvents. Okay. Candy. Kids' rooms. So, by the way, the worst stains you'll ever see in your house are in your kids' rooms because of things like markers, makeup, or things along those lines. We've moved only twice in the last 10 years, and our first move was from Sacramento down here to Modesto, where my family's at. And when we moved out, my daughter, her room had the craziest of stains that I had to deal with, and it was a little bit of investigating to try and figure out what in the world is this stain. And the funny ones were the wax-based ones. And it was a lot of times from gifts that family members had given that had different craft kind of things that the kids were doing. So,
should have had a class out of that room.
Oh, tell me about it. I would spend a lot of time scratching my head going, what in the world? I'm going to kill this kid. So if you look through this list, you'll see a lot of them. That is, it says apply a detergent solution. Things like chocolate milk, soda, coffee with creamer, eggs. But then when we get into specialty things, we might need a little bit more. Tony, your question.
So obviously when you're cleaning within an organization, they're going to have their chemical company pre-treated cleaning solutions that they want you to use. So you don't have access to that. on page 86, just above where it says notes. So would these be pretty safe? Those little bullets there where it says how to make a general purpose, alkaline spotting solution, and acidic spotting solution?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be a way that you can kind of tackle it in the field?
Yep, and if you guys want, I'm going to show you. So first of all, you may not have access to those items in the field. You're probably not going to have any white vinegar or ammonia or baking soda around. In your home, you're more likely to have that. I will say this, Tony, if you're out in a commercial application where you're cleaning out in an account, most of the time you will have access to an all-purpose cleaner, okay? You should have that in your chemical system that you're working with. An all-purpose cleaner that has a pH between 7.5 and 8.5, totally fine to use as a first step, using that with a terry cloth towel. Okay. If it's more than that, then now we want to start dealing with that, and that's going to be, it all of a sudden goes from a short-term problem to a mid-range. I have to plan for it. I now know I've got a problem and I have some stains I can't get out. I'm going to have to get somebody in to, get me the right product. And usually the supply company can help you with that.
Okay.
I'm going to show you, we're not going to watch this video, but I'm going to share with you just this link, and you guys can take a look, and then I'll post it in the class. I will post also this video that we just watched in today's class. Okay. So from Clean My Space, I'm not going to show it with the complete video, but I'm just going to, once it loads here, I'm going to.
Since 2011, we've made.
So this video here is do-it-yourself cleaning products. Fantastic video to go in, and if you guys want to try making some products for your home to test out for all-purpose cleaners, some great suggestions of things that you can make with, if you have some isopropyl alcohol, okay, which we would use maybe in a safety kit, hydrogen peroxide, baking soda, okay, some just real simple ingredients, a lot of do-it-yourself cleaning products. I will tell you a couple of important things about this. One, Melissa Maker and her company have tested these products to make sure they're safe, so they're not recommending anything that is going to cause you guys to hurt yourselves. Number two, her products are designed for residential do-it-yourself stuff, not necessarily for commercial, because when you mix these products up, they're only stable for a short time, usually for about an hour or two is at the most. An example of that, I made some do-it-yourself products, and within just a couple hours, because I tested a lot of her recipes just because I wanted to see how accurate she was, what would happen is over time it wants to separate out because she doesn't have things like wetting agents in her products. She doesn't have the all the extra things that bind and hold the chemical together to stay together as a cleaning solution that happens when a chemical manufacturer makes large chemicals. So great stuff for do-it-yourself. Not something that you would want to use for a commercial, but just it helps you guys to see how these products work. Okay, so fun little share there for you guys. And if you guys have things that you found out through other people, feel free to share it. I'm more than happy to test something out because I test chemicals a lot. And if I'm uncertain about something I'm going to test, I call up my friends I have a friend that is a chemist for a chemical company. And if it's something that just doesn't sound right, I'm going to call him up and say, Mark, got a question for you. Somebody told me about this. Tell me what that's going to do. How will it perform? And he'll walk me through it and whether or not it makes sense or not. But very knowledgeable. So if you ever have a combination or somebody says, hey, this is what I use, and especially if it's a mixture of a product, let me know. I'd be happy to find out more. Nelson.
You know, what I use around the house, because my wife, she loved pine salt, she loved the smell, all the other chemicals, and what I try to do, stay away from it. So I use distilled vinegar and liquid downy soap, half and half. Put it in the microwave. It's good for this general cleaning. The only thing, the downside is that you'll be smelling the vinegar. If you can get used to smelling the vinegar, it's all right.
So here's something else that I'm going to tell you about. Get away from using things like liquid downy because it's got a lot of builders in it that will leave a residue. However, try this. Again, check her recipes out. One of the things that she recommends is the use of what's called essential oils because of exactly what you said. Vinegar's got a strong smell, right? And so the essential oils do two things. They're made from natural things like oranges or pine. So if your wife likes the pine smell, you can buy some essential oils that have pine oil in it. Pine oil is remember in our cleaners, we talked about in chapter 2 on chemicals, pine oil was one of the first types of cleaning detergents, right? So pine oil, like in pine salt, doesn't take a lot to help in a degreaser or as an all-purpose cleaner to be mixed with some other products. But again, remember when we went through the chemicals, I told you guys not to mix products. What she's talking about is some very basic things like baking soda and hydrogen peroxide. These have been tested. Don't try and create your own recipes without testing and knowing what that could cause. That's why I said, let me know. I'm more than happy to find out information about it. But I know a lot about fabric softener. And fabric softener, although we use it in our home, my wife loves Downy, right? But fabric softener has some things in it that will leave a residue behind. And it's not really a detergent. So just something to be aware of. Okay. So that covers the chemicals for our class today. Here's where we go from here, and this is your assignment to now look at for Friday. Now I want you to go back to page 81, read the information about basic cleaning procedures, and this is going to cover a lot about vacuuming. There are two types of vacuuming. I'd like for you guys to pay attention to what those two recommended types of vacuuming are, because this question comes up on your test. Okay? Then go through the spotting guidelines of spotting carpets. Read through that and the steps involved. What we will do on Friday's session is we'll go through the process of normal cleaning of carpets. We'll talk about some vacuuming basics and guidelines, as well as safety, including vacuuming of stairwells, and then we will deal with spotting. And that's where we will do the hands-on demonstration on spotting. So if you happen to have those samples, then we'll do a little bit of testing. And I will try and find a couple home remedies that you guys can use, but I'll try and recommend a couple products that you guys can utilize. I have my samples, so we'll do a few stains. I'm going to set up, I've got to test this out sometime tomorrow night. I've got meetings. Tonight I do a training in the middle of the night, so it's going to be a long day for me. But tomorrow evening, I'll try and do some testing on my video camera so that we'll have a camera pointed down on the spot that I'm doing, and you guys can see that. Okay? So that wraps up today's class. I told you today was a little shorter of a class because there's not a lot of chemicals to go through. So your homework is to go through the process of how we deal with carpet cleaning, the vacuuming guidelines, the 2 different types of vacuuming, and then the spotting techniques, right? Pay attention to those. At that point, Monday, we will then go into our breakout sessions. So what we'll leave, the last little bit of today's class is open for any questions or anything along those lines. Anybody need any assistance with something? That's what I'm here for the rest of today's class. Alex.
Yes, a question on vacuuming. I'm looking at the, I guess you could say sort of the notes on Google Classroom, if you can call them that, on the about the vacuum cleaners.
Yep.
I'm wondering, where does it? How I say this? Exactly, what would happen if I did use the wrong type of vacuum?
Oh,
Like
you
if
go to
it's-
hell for that. That's a bad
What's
thing to
that?
do. You're getting a lot of trouble for using the wrong vacuum, Alex. No, I'm kidding. You know,
well, I'm s-
there's not
I'm
a
saying-
lot of bad things that are going to happen. It's really about what's going to be easier for you to clean with so that you can be the most productive. The reality is you may not have much of a choice in an application. You may have to use a tank vacuum to be able to do something, or you may have to use an upright vacuum because you don't have a backpack, and it's just going to take long. That's about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And sorry for my sarcasm. I tend to be a little sarcastic at times with the answers. I apologize.
I believe it sometimes.
My kids are tease me about that. Dad, you're very sarcastic. Only with you guys. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Any questions regarding any of your testing? Anybody have any issues there? Okay. Oh. I heard somebody. All right. Well, if nobody has any more questions or any other things that you guys need, we'll go ahead and wrap up today's class. Again, you guys have your homework assignment for Friday. And then, like I said, we'll do some demonstrations. So I'll show you some of the stuff for that.
Okay, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
So please, can you posted the 20-second recording, please, on Google
Yes,
Classroom?
I'm doing that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome, Archita.
Dave, I have a question.
Yes, Robert.
On the airplanes, I noticed that some of the
Recording
carpet,
stopped.
some of the carpet is coming up, and I don't think they use a glue. What I think it is like some kind of sticky material.
Yeah, likely on an aircraft. And again, I'm not positive because of the way the manufacturing works, but I would imagine that they use them where it is attached, probably at a outside manufacturing where they may put the plate down, whatever the carpet is glued down to. So they may actually be using like a piece of aluminum or something like that. And then the carpet is attached to that, probably with an adhesive. If it's separating or whatever, there's not a lot of repair you're going to be able to do with that, because you're in a difficult situation in an aircraft.
Yeah, because I've tried to lay it back down and like clean underneath it and everything, and try to stick it back down. It just won't work.
Yep. I would just report it to your manager, and then let them deal with reporting it to Southwest.
Yeah.
Southwest, when they probably, because periodically they'll go in and do repairs where they'll replace seats.
Right.
And likely the challenge is going to be removing the seat, being able to take that panel out and replace it. And I believe that's probably the way it's built. I've watched and again, it's just stuff I've watched on television, but I've watched things like how ships are built and how aircrafts are assembled. A lot of the stuff is brought in individual components.
Yeah.
That's usually a maintenance issue. You'd have to report that to the operations. They send it to maintenance, and then maintenance take it. Depending on where it's at, that's a tripping issue. Then that'll get taken care of probably pretty quickly. But normally has to go to a station where they have the maintenance to do that. So
it's usually under the seats, because all the seams seem to be under the seats.
Yeah, they're just going to keep deferring that thing because it's under a seat.
Yeah,
and something else there that's going to affect. So.
And they do, because I've had like the same plane come in. I'm like, that's hasn't been fixed yet.
Right.
Yep. Absolutely. And that's the fun thing about our business is a lot of different things. I do a training on how to resurface a wood floor for a gym floor. None of what I teach for gym floors applies to arena wood floors, because the wood floors that they use in arenas are built completely different. They come apart in panels, and when they recoat them, they don't recoat the entire floor. They'll fix a section of the floor and they'll send it out to the manufacturer, and they'll replace it with a new panel. And it's completely different from what we think of, because they're putting a wood floor on top of a concrete floor, and it's assembled just for NBA events or college events. So much different.
Yeah, I noticed on the train, they have actual squares. So if something can't be fixed, they just pull the square out and replace it.
Yep, exactly.
Which seems to be a lot easier than trying to deal with a stain that you can't get out or something like that.
Absolutely. Hey, Robert, stick around for a second. I do have a question for you on that thing for the airport that I was going to pick your brain on.
Okay.
Yep. So, all right, guys. I am going to go ahead and we'll end class here, and we'll see everybody on Friday. If you need anything, stick around. I'm here to answer questions. Otherwise, class is dismissed for today.
One more question.
Okay, thank you, sir.
What was Friday's assignment?